Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly. And I'm delighted to be joined today by four experts who've appeared a lot in Travel Weekly recently about a subject that is very important. We're going to be talking today about fraud in the travel industry. So let me just introduce everyone to you before we start. Barry Gooch is joining us. He's chairman of Profit, which is Prevention of Fraud in Trade. So give us a wave, Barry. He's there. Also joined by Danny Wayne. Now, he's head of membership at ABTA, and by Adrian Smith, who is the director of sales at JetSet. And last but not least, Jackie Stedman, who is the owner of Travel Time World. So thank you all. You've given lots of time already to us for our stories that we've been writing in Travel Weekly. And I'm delighted you can join us today because it does appear to be a growing issue. We getting calls all the time from agents saying they feel that fraud is on the rise. But Barry, perhaps you could just start us off really. Is it increasing, or is it just that we're shining a light on this subject at the minute, so we're hearing more about it?
The situation is there is nothing new that's going on at the moment. What happens is there's various types of fraud which are specific and endemic within travel. And what happens is at different times, different types of fraud come to the fore. And at the moment, you'll be getting reports of bogus agents or lookalike websites or people committing fraud within travel companies. But at other times, it will be bust outs, if you remember Chris Philippou and all those, and so on and so forth. And there's in the taxonomy of fraud, some of those are recognised by the police as fraud and some are not, which is one of the issues. And so they don't even recognise some of the things that happens in fraud, in travel as fraud. And it's the same with the card schemes. They don't recognise chargebacks, which is a major issue for most travel companies, as a fraud. And we know that fraudsters use chargebacks to commit fraud against travel companies. So when you see the official figures, they never take that sort of thing into account. I don't know if that helps, but at the moment we are seeing a rise in those direct frauds against agents and suppliers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And is that because, Barry, that it's just very, very busy at the moment, or has been in January, and people, I mean, we had people saying, well, it's because we're so busy and we haven't got time to really think, because people are kind of short-staffed as well, so they're really working on tight ships and they're just not maybe having time to really notice when these things are happening.
There's a combination of things, I would say. It's first of all, people lost a lot of revenue over the lockdown, and they've been really keen to make up lost revenue. With the change of the ATOL regs as well, you'll find a lot of companies are sort of running on empty. So there is a real need to go out and try and recover some of that energy. So people may cut corners. I'm not going to say they do, but they may cut corners. More likely, it's because although we've been putting out through people like ABTA and all the major consortia advice on how to harden your business, until it actually happens and is identified by a company, they often don't realise it's going on, and therefore don't put the measures in place. And we get called in quite often to companies, and it's stuff that we've, could have been cured, overcome if they just put in some basic free systems and things. So I think there's a combination of things.
Okay.
I also think travel is particularly being targeted at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Let's come back to all the systems and things we can do in a minute. And Jackie, I want to come to you because you're nodding a lot. But let's just ask Danny first, and bring in ABTA, because certainly a lot of the agents we're speaking to are ABTA agents, and they are feeling vulnerable. So what are your members telling you?
Yeah, well, fraud has always been around, but it's certainly evolved over time. And I think the fact that business has come back so quickly, and yes, members don't necessarily have the same numbers of staff, but also we've got lots of new people in the industry as well, and maybe they haven't had as much training and aren't aware of some of the warning signs. So I think it's about helping them to learn and to get onto that as quickly as possible. And the type of fraud has changed because of technology as well, and we're all working from home a lot more. and that's been a change to people's business models as well. So some of the processes that you might have had in place as a travel agent before the pandemic might need looking at again now, as more people are working from home and you've got these new individuals coming into your business as well.
And is that something that ABTA is, obviously you're aware of it, so are you going to take some action yourselves, whether it be training you mentioned or new processes and systems? Will you be helping your members in that respect?
Yeah, so we are. So raising awareness amongst members is one thing that we're doing, how to look out for the different types of fraud, where to report it. So to places like Action Fraud, giving guidance on fraud prevention as well, because prevention is probably the best way to try to tackle this. So educating individuals, encouraging them to take part in the different training activities that we've got going on as well. But also, I think keeping it in perspective that each business is managing risks on a daily basis, and this is just one of them. And there are many other things that are impacting members' businesses, and yeah, they need to deal with that on a day-to-day basis.
And are you, sorry, I will leave you alone in a minute, but are you putting in new courses? I know you've always had training, you know, you'll have a sort of rolling, you know, calendar of training where people can come and do it, but are you putting in new training, and are you, you know, you talked about different channels like around social media or the fact that people are working from home. Are you adapting your courses? So
yeah, we are. We're raising the profile of different types of fraud prevention through things like social media and through our different member channels, but also without it being, you know, a shameless plug for an event. For example, at our next ABTA Travel Finance Conference, we've introduced a fraud session that Barry's taking part in. So working with specialists in the field as well to try and get that information in front of members. Yeah,
and you're seeing it, more agents signing up for this at the moment, are you then?
Yeah, there's definitely an interest in it for sure. Okay. And I think that's a bit because there are more awareness of fraud at the moment, but also I think people do realize that we all need a refresher as travel professionals, and we've got all these new people to train as well.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Presumably, Danny, sorry, just to interrupt. Danny, presumably we're going to have it on the regional meetings as well. Have an agenda item on those meetings, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if members want to talk about it, then of course, you know, we will. Yeah. But like I say, it's one of many things that as travel businesses, we're all dealing with right now.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you started talking, Jackie, because I was leaving you nodding a lot over the last 10 minutes. Don't want to do that. You were nodding a lot about seeing, you know, when Barry was talking about things being on the increase. You talked to us about being maybe targeted 2 or 3 times a month. Excuse me. So tell us your experience.
I think, first of all, I think there is a targeted attack. A targeted attack on travel, and I think they are becoming much more sophisticated. There is so much data out there that they can glean from our website. They know who our staff are, they know your telephone numbers, you know your hours that you're working. So it's very easy to build up a relationship. So what they're doing is they get more sophisticated, they're calling up, they're getting into conversations with you. Oh, I saw Ashley at such and such an event, or I saw so-and-so on the train the other evening. And you think, okay, yeah. And all of a sudden they've broken down those barriers. So what before was the hotspots that we all knew, you know, a flight to, etc., a certain destination, a particular accent, then our warning signs were up. Now it's becoming much more sophisticated. They build a relationship over a couple of weeks, getting quotes, getting a price. I want to take my son wants to go to Bangkok. It's fine, I can pay, it's business class. And they phone back the next week and they do the similar thing. And by then, all of a sudden, the barriers are down. Yeah. So yes, and we get at least 1 or 2 calls, every week nearly. You know,
we quoted you saying, if it doesn't feel right, just don't do it. But correct. It sounds from what you've just said, there's so many alarm bells, like it's changing. So
absolutely,
how do you know that it's not right if there's so many different ways now that they're approaching it?
We're basically engaging in that conversation, saying, oh, where do you live then? Oh, that's quite a long way out. How did you find us? Oh, you found us online, did you? Well, you know, it's only on a late booking like this. We only take bank transfer, I'm afraid. We don't take credit cards. Bang. That's usually the end of the conversation.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, I did one a year ago, and we have a good relationship with our suppliers, and it was a late booking, but it was a honeymoon allegedly. And the credit card, the passports were sent, everything. And it was a stolen credit card. And the first thing we knew about it was the person whose card it was had seen a statement, and I've got 10,000 here and I've not booked anything with you. Now, whether that was a coordinated, you know, working with the card holder, etc., I don't know. But we managed to, you know, to not be financially impacted by that, because we had a good relationship with our tour operator, and we phoned them up and they haven't ticketed. But
and Jackie, when you know you've been done, or you've avoided it because you've got rid of them, do you report that to the police or to Action Fraud, or what's your next step then to then try and limit this going forward?
Well, we reported that straight away to the police because the card holder was involved in it. She reported it. We pulled on the full dossier for them with the passport details and everything. Police were not interested. Not interested.
Really. And Barry, sorry, Adrian, just got Adrian. We'll come to you. But Barry, you know, is that common that the police they're not interested in these sort of cases where an agent may have thwarted something, but they still want to, you know, explain what's happened to try and stop it happening to someone else?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm going to disagree with Jackie that it's getting more sophisticated. There's nothing sophisticated about the way they commit fraud. Basically, it's just that agents don't put in the defences to stop it in the first place, really. A lot of it is organised, and people would be really surprised if they use the Intel system. They would say that it is organised, and there, you know, one person who approaches you has probably approached you 100 times under different guises with stolen or cloned IDs, and they're always the other passenger, which is why your verification tools don't pick it up, because they only look at the lead passenger or the payment. They don't look at the other passengers, which our Intel system does, and they add themselves to the bottom of it. And at the ABTA conference, I will demonstrate that. I'll show one of the millions and millions of bookings that we've got in there, where one person appears, I don't know, about 20 times, but he's always the other passenger. And you would never know, you'd never pick it up any other way.
Because he's not the lead name on the booking.
The police, coming to the police, you'll know that the police got cut by 20,000. They have a central reporting place, which is Action Fraud, which for 10 years we had an unpaid analyst in there actually packaging up travel fraud. That stopped with the pandemic. It no longer happens that travel fraud is looked at. And basically you should report it, but it won't get looked at unless the value of the individual fraud is over 100 and something thousand pounds, because the algorithm in the system will not even look at it, even though they deny.
But Barry, you say you should report it, but if it's not that much, I mean, who's going to do that? Jackie and people like Jackie are so busy.
Well, most businesses don't. Most businesses no longer do across sectors. We deal with multiple sectors, which is why we changed the name from travel to trade. And I can assure you that most businesses have given up because they don't get any response. Which is worrying, because the only way you're going to get extra police officers, and they estimate there's 80,000 now required to deal with fraud alone, which is never going to happen, that basically they just don't bother. What you should know is
it's a really vicious
all police
circle,
forces have, it's the only way you're going to get more resources if the numbers go up.
Yeah, I get it.
That's
So your message is do report it, but don't expect a police response.
No, we're trying to get back in there at the moment, because otherwise we've still got one in the pipeline at Kent, which is down Whitney. You may remember Black Tip Travel came to there for 2016, and we're still working on that. But if I told you the efforts we've had to go to, and it still hasn't gone to the CPS, you wouldn't believe it. Rita Hunter took over a year of lobbying of the police minister and the chief constable and things just to get it sorted. But basically, what you need to know is that it's all very well reporting it to Action Fraud. They have to spot it and want to deal with it. And if they do, they then package it up and send it to a police force. Now, over half the police forces in the UK no longer have any fraud specialists. And that includes the Metropolitan Police, who take 50% of all their reports. They actually allocate on a daily basis 10 officers to look at fraud for the whole of London, which is completely inadequate.
Not enough.
At the time of Chris Philippou, they had 250 dedicated officers. And
Right.
even those that do, like Durham, who are really good and took line bar low and we supported them, you know, even they struggle because resource is tight, and the chief officer is always saying, well, are the victims in our area and things
Okay.
like that. So it's,
All right.
that's
Well,
what's
let's
going
let.
on.
I mean, you're painting a very bleak picture, but we
Yeah.
obviously do need to. Your original message is that we do need to keep reporting, otherwise it will remain bleak, and we've got to try and change that. Adrian, let's talk about someone who has had some success in trying to, you know, thwart these attempts. So tell us about your experience at Jet Set, and then we'll come on to talk about what you've put in place.
Yeah. So fundamentally, I have to disagree with something that Barry's just said, that it isn't getting more sophisticated. I kind of sit on the same wavelength as Jackie on this, that you do see whether it's becoming more sophisticated or certainly evolving is up for semantics, but certainly we saw something during 22 that we had never seen before, a different type of fraud. I'll come on to the more recent one in a minute, but we saw something that we had never seen, which went under our radar because we're very tuned into the typical profile that Jackie sort of alluded to before. And what was being perpetrated against agents middle part of last year was something that we hadn't seen before, and it played out accordingly like this. We had bookings coming through that were being taken for departures way off in advance. Invariably, this is book travel.
Yeah, that's what we
So,
think is
absolutely. So
yeah.
there's profiling, obviously, that goes on, destinations, etc., etc. But one of the key ones was book travel, and this was booking 6-9 months out. What would then happen is that the fraudster would contact the airline to explain that they've got a booking, albeit with a travel agent, but the travel agent is closed because it's out of hours, and they have a family emergency over in X that they now need to utilize this ticket to travel tomorrow
Sooner.
or tonight.
Oh wow, okay.
Absolutely. Now, airlines, whenever we want an airline to help out with, in destination, they would always refer it back to the travel agent, tour operator. But on these occasions, they was actually making the change for the client. So they wasn't referring it.
Oh, and not asking you about it.
Because
Okay.
obviously fraudster is saying, I've got a desperately ill relative in X that I need to get to see. I need to be on that flight tonight or tomorrow. And obviously that was then playing on heartstrings of somebody at the airline, and they was making the change, taking a change fee. But that's immaterial when you've got like a business class ticket for £3,000. If the change fee is like £100, 150, fair enough, you pay that. Of course, then the chargeback comes through to somebody unsuspecting like Jackie, way off. Once that client has travelled, invariably they're only looking to travel on an outbound. They have no intention of utilising the return that's been booked. So that was what we saw last year.
And did you lose a lot of money through that?
The agents do.
Sadly,
the agents do.
Yeah, absolutely.
The agents do.
Yeah.
Because from sadly, like we worked with the airline. We shut down the ability for anyone in their call center to make changes, regardless of reason, on a tour operator booking. So that was one success there. It took a bit of time, but yeah, the agent got hit quite a bit on that, unfortunately. You know, that from an airline's perspective, Lucy, the client has consumed the first flight. You know, they obviously have their own issues that they have to contend with on fraud themselves. So their actual how receptive they are to just refunding in full is sadly pretty non-existent.
Okay, so that was what came about last year. Then that's what you saw, and then the more recent cases. Then just to
cover
that off,
agency impersonator.
Yes,
where just like Jackie sort of said, they obviously over a period of time.
They got a genuine ABTA number, haven't they? But they have
a genuine ABTA number, which is out in the public domain. They are utilising a name from the agency. So they've obviously spoken to Jackie or.
Well, it's
or
like what Jackie's saying. You know, they've rung several times over the last couple of weeks.
You know, so they're coming through. And then they was looking to make bookings for traditional patterns, so business class to expensive destinations, the UAE as a classic, and traveling very, very imminent, sort of literally coming through at 5:30.
Oh, really? What, for the next day?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously this started proliferating in January. We was open till 6:30. So it was coming through at 5:30, but not every travel agent was open till 5:30, obviously. So they was coming through looking to make a booking and asking for that we would send a booking confirmation to Jackie if it was Jackie Stedman. But Jackie might not be there to pick up that confirmation until the next morning. If that flight was for tonight, which is not totally out of the norm, it obviously raises an alert system within the realms of jet set. It's not absolutely unheard of.
Yeah.
Or first thing the next morning. But what gave this lady away was that she asked for it to be also sent, the booking confirmation to just a personal email address, and said it's absolutely fine, send it to XYZ travel admin email, but can I also have it because I'm not able to pick that up at the moment. And as soon as she said that, it really alerted my team member.
Yeah.
They came to us, and we was able to get in touch with the actual agent through social media. Paul Molyneux got in touch on his Facebook because he
knew nothing about it, of course.
Absolutely, and just said that is not me.
Okay. All right. And then that happened a couple of other times.
And then it happened 3 or 4 times, once on a Sunday. Absolutely, and just kept rolling. Now, she clearly had some knowledge of the travel industry and the way of working. She because we're trade only, we can instantly spot when.
What are you saying then? What are you saying? They've had knowledge of the you think they might have worked in travel previously?
I think so. I think
they just knew too much about how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. Adrian, just so I can get everybody else to keep talking, I want to come on and talk about the PIN system you've put in place. But Danny, just to bring you back in and to pick up on what Barry says, it's not more sophisticated. It's just a case that agents don't put in the adequate defences. So what's your response to that on behalf of your members? Are they slack? And why are they not putting them in?
Yeah, well, it probably varies depending on the business. So everyone will have their own ways of dealing with this and the amount of risk that they're prepared to take. But I think certainly what the example there that Adrian was describing, there were a number of red flags. And for me as a business owner, I was sitting there thinking, I would be querying that. I would be wondering, why is there a last minute booking if it's not normal? Maybe it's a new customer. If it's a new member of staff, having a process in place for them to raise that with their line manager. and just get a second opinion.
Sorry, Danny, but interrupt you. Sorry, but this is out of hours. So I, as a business owner, and all my staff have gone home now. We've closed down. So what procedure could we put in place that would stop that happening? We don't know anything about it. We don't know it's a late booking. We don't know it's going to go, you know, that it's a new customer. We don't know anything. This is happening without our knowledge.
Yeah, well, I think on this specific example, exactly what Adrian's going to tell us that they've put into place. I think that is the, you know, the password, the pin code. That is an ideal way to do this over the telephone. And, you know, it makes me think, why haven't we done this before? This is not commonplace in the industry. And it's crazy. It's great that JetSet have done this and they're leading the way on it. And I would encourage more tour operators to do that because it protects all of us.
Okay. Well, let's just quickly get Adrian to explain what it is. Just quickly, Adrian, explain what it is and how you developed it, and then I want to come back to both Jackie and
simple.
Danny.
Within the CRM system of Jets, we've created a field that allows an agent to insert a 4-digit PIN. They can amend it, they can view it themselves on the Jet system, and then when they come through to our call center, they are asked instantly at the point, as soon as Jackie comes through and gives her ABTA number, she will be asked if she has assigned a PIN. She will be asked, can I just take your PIN number, please, Jackie? If she doesn't know her PIN, the handler here will not be able to even see the PIN. We don't see the PIN here, so we can't sort of even give clues. All that we can tell Jackie or Ashley or anyone that else is working at Travel Time World is where they can find their PIN, because we know that one has been assigned. If one hasn't been assigned by Danny Travel, then we aren't, the system instantly knows not to ask for it.
And I think last time we spoke to you,
it obviously verifies it, Lucy. So only once Jackie has given 6852 and we insert that, it verifies it and allows my team colleague to proceed with the inquiry. This is not even a booking stage.
I hope that isn't Jackie's PIN code you've just given away.
No, it isn't.
Anyway, what was I going to say?
It's my credit card PIN number, Adrian.
I know. That's just an example, everyone watching. Do not go and try and use 6852. Right. Adrian, you had 960 agents had signed up to this when we last interviewed you. That was a few weeks ago. What are you up to now? How many?
We're about 1,280 now.
So which is good. I mean, it's a great, Danny referenced it saying it's a really good thing, but Danny, should it be down to individual operators to all come up with their own system, or should there be a sort of standardized system across the whole industry, or certainly ABTA tour operators? You know, should ABTA be leading the way on this?
Well, I think it's down to the business to decide what they want to do, because sometimes, and I think one of the reasons why tour operators haven't done this in the past is because it could be a potential blocker to booking. If agents are thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to call that tour operator because I've got to find out the PIN number, or I've got to check what the password is.
Another step,
and it's the same as when you're booking on an online system of an operator and they have 2 or 3 fields that you have to fill in. You then think, oh, I'm not going to book with that one. I'll go to someone else where it's easier. So that's been, I think, one of the reasons why we probably haven't done this earlier. If this became the standard across the industry, I think that would be a great place to get to.
Sorry, dying to ask 2 questions. Jackie, does it put you off?
Well, I think, first of all, I'd like to sort of contradict Danny, sorry, love, but this is the misuse of the ABTA number. And I do think that ABTA need to stand up on this and say, they are using the ABTA number that's been allocated to your branch, and they are misusing it. So I think we have a misuse of the ABTA number, and I think we do need to, as ABTA members, ABTA tour operators, we need to put some things in place.
So this is because they can freely get hold of an agent's ABTA number, and they can go. So you think ABTA needs to do something else? So
absolutely
to the JetSet initiative in a minute, but this is to even stop that happening. ABTA needs to put some more protection around ABTA numbers.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, the police are not interested really, because it's a commercial fraud. Is the consumer is not being affected.
Yeah.
This is the agent who's actually carrying this cost. So again, the police are not really that interested, because and the media as well. You know, I was talking this morning to somebody, and they said, "Well, why doesn't the media pick up on this?" I know Simon Calder has, but you know, the general media, because it's not consumers that are suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'd say on that, Jackie, is it's not exclusive to ABTA members. You know, we've got other associations out there in the industry that have these unique identifiers that you can find online. So it is a wider problem for the industry.
Yeah.
And that's
However, Danny, just to let you know, in 2014, we presented to all of the consortia a way of protecting the numbers, including Atoll. And none of them have done it. And not only that, it doesn't cost anything for any brand or the consortia to sign up to the Digital Millennium Copyright Service, which then tracks those numbers. If you sign up to it and put them on there, it will track them worldwide. And it will come back to you and tell you if they're being misused or that they're being used.
Barry,
and there's a takedown service. But unfortunately, none of the consortia was interested enough to take it up. And I don't know why.
oh, well, that was going to be my question, because clearly you say you presented them all and they didn't, and you're saying it's not
but
costly.
the sort of thing that Jackie and Adrian are talking about, we analyse fraud, as you know, because we get called into companies, and we basically do research on the millions and millions and millions of payment records that the airlines and agents put into our system. And we, as far go as, I think it was 2013, we were alerting people that what happens is fraudsters, they test company systems, they find out what the systems are, and they share those deals on what is known as the dark web, which we try and hunt down those sites, but you can't get them taken down anymore. It's almost impossible to get them taken down because of the way that I can change the rules. And what happens is, if they particularly want somebody to travel, they will actually target a company, generally out of hours, but they won't just target one, they will target multiple companies at the same time. And we've had instances where airlines and agents from different consortia have all had exactly the same booking attempted through them.
Yeah.
Some of them have picked them up and others haven't. And again, you will find that the verification tools are completely ignorant of that, which is why we were asked by, I think it was Steve Abramson and Trevor Sears at IATA to come up with something which did all that. And we have that, and it's for the industry. And if people use that, it won't stop fraud, but it will make them more resilient.
But the uptake at the moment has been low.
We need people to come on board. It's what intelligence is about. And we produce alerts based on that virtually every week. And I know, Danny, I think you told me you put them in your members area. But, you know, we don't all the time alert people to things that are going on because we don't want to frighten people. But, you know, what we're seeing is nothing really new. It's just it's come more to the fore. And people have had these problems in the past. One of the really big agencies had a very similar thing in 2011. And I think that cost them, I can't remember how many 100,000 it cost them. But again, with that, we were able to work with the FBI and get that dealt with.
I think what Danny's saying, though, is adding in extra layers, whatever it may be, signing up to different intelligence systems, whatever it may be, there's a fear that you're going to then put off business. So I wanted to come to you, Adrian, because you've taken the plunge, you've put in this extra system. Have you seen bookings drop as a result?
Yeah, and we obviously had that exact debate internally at the sort of concept stage. Like we had to quickly move because we had a number of instances of this nature within a sort of 2-week period. So we quickly had to act. It was a concern. What we've initially done is made a voluntary PIN. So it's down to the agent to decide whether they want to assign the PIN and help us all in this, because I think we're all in this together. At some stage, once adoption has naturally reached a certain level, we will probably go to a mandatory PIN.
Yeah. Okay. So you haven't seen any drop in business, because if they don't have the
No,
PIN at the minute, they'll still be able to
absolutely.
book.
We
Okay.
will then integrate it potentially within a new telephony system that we're going to bring in, not as part of this, but it's just an upgrade to our telephony system that's going to happen, where potentially the agent would be able to punch in their PIN while as they first hit our call center, and it will talk to the CRM.
And how soon do you think you might be able to make it mandatory?
I would like to think early part of the second half of this year. We will be doing a countdown. We will give
you'll
notice.
give people enough warning, of course.
We'll give notice.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask Jackie, what would that mean for you as a independent agent if all tour operators, would you welcome it if everybody had a different PIN, or would it be an absolute headache to remember all those different PINs or whatever system they use?
I think to put this in perspective, this is only for telephone bookings.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Adrian is, yes, and most of your call center, your IT call center, they're tailor-made, and that's probably not being hit. This is just for telephone bookings, where, probably about 5% of our bookings we jet set, and we do a lot on the phone. Yeah. And so I think that's the thing to bear in mind. So I don't think it's that we're already dealing with passwords, and so having an extra PIN number on our system is not that big a deal. Yeah. Okay. And just keep it in perspective. This is only for telephone bookings. We've got a different ball game if people start hacking into our systems, and using the passwords. Yeah. But having said that, we have had, and we're only a tiny little travel agent. We've had 200 attempts in a day to get into our website. Yeah. Wow. Now we don't hold anything in there. It's a brochure. We don't have any database. You can't book online. And they're coming in from all, we use computer generated. They're coming in from all over the world. 200, 250 in a day.
They're bots. They're not people. They're bots.
Yeah, they're bots.
They're bots.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what you have to be aware is it might be a distributed denial of service attack trying to bring your system down.
Right. But again, it's not.
It may not be being done to harvest data. It might be done to try and take your site offline.
Interestingly, it was just when we started tweeting all about fraud.
Someone's watching you, Jackie.
The way Adrian needs to sell his system is to point out to his agents that even if it did slightly slow down the booking, it's much more costly to deal with the fallout from a fraud. And not only that, but it can actually affect their card acquiring and their insurance. And,
if they've been hit and they've got that on their record.
If they get hit and they get hit regularly, the cost of acquiring will go up and the cost of insurance will go up. So a small delay, even on, high volumes of bookings, is probably worth for the avoidance of that downstream issue. Yeah. I know Barclaycard are quite keen to take machines off of people who regularly get hit by fraud. And, it's a danger that all agents face, and we need to help each other, really.
Yeah.
And I think that the prevention and the perspective is really important, because what we need to make sure is that we're not, creating a whole hysteria around fraud. We've all got to make sure that we're doing what we can to prevent things. But at the same time, we don't want to stop people from booking holidays because they're worried that they're going to be impacted by this as well. So we, from an ABSA perspective, we're trying to make sure that we help members and put those things in place to prevent the fraud, but also we want consumers to continue booking.
Could there be more collaboration on this, though? I mean, Adrian said, I think we're all in this together. And, Profit's got your intelligence system where you want people to share when they've, share data. And I think there's a new system called Prevent coming out from Travellix, which is where you can upload screen grabs and things of where you might have been targeted online and when it's been weird.
You've got to be careful, Lucy, because that does not comply with the Data Protection Act.
Oh,
I'll tell you now. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't promote
What,
it if
this
I was
new-
you.
All right.
No,
I'm
but
not
but
promoting
Barry,
anything.
how
I'm just talking
yeah.
about systems that where you can share, I guess, either people that you think, you know, we want to flag certain names or processes or where there's been red flags, as you call them. Should we be sharing in the industry, whatever way that is?
No,
Should we be sharing?
because it's against the law. If you start sharing people's data and you get it wrong, you will get a massive fine that will put you out of business. It's as simple as that. We actually have a system which is, funny enough, used by Action Fraud. And we use it to gather intelligence. We spent 4 years negotiating with the Information Commissioner's Office, and they'd then paid a lot of money to Hill Dickinson to do an end-to-end data protection assessment. And then we got Field Fisher to do the same the following year. And it complies with the law. The Data Protection Commissioner says it is the only system they've seen. But to do that costs a lot of money. And there's a lot of things like you have to have transparency. You have to have, people are still entitled to ask if you're holding data on them. You have to have procedures in place for everything you would if you were a company, but a lot more because you're dealing with sensitive data. So just sharing data by email or through a system where you're sharing screen grabs is extremely dangerous for the people concerned. And you know, as a journalist, that you wouldn't do that as journalists.
No,
Sorry,
go on, Jackie. Yeah, go on.
Currently, I mean, the platform that all this is coming out on is Travel Gossip, yeah, and that shouldn't be, the platform where we're all reading about it. However, I assume, and I don't know this, that the insurance industry has some sort of database, because every time I apply for car insurance or house insurance, it says, if you've had this, we will be able to check. What are they using?
Right, the insurance industry, ABI pays for 35 police officers, okay, who sit up with UK Finance, as they're now called, and they will only take reports from ABI. They use a system which even your brokers can't get access to, called FIS, and it is not shared with other police officers who are dealing with fraud, let alone anybody else. And they sit alongside the dedicated check and plastic card unit, which is 10 Met officers and 10 City of London officers in the next door in the next room up at King's Wharf. And there's another unit which is paid for by the banks and finance industry. And then you have another unit up there, which is 10 officers, which are paid for by the Intellectual Property Office, and they will only deal with intellectual property. That they are all specialist squads, and FIS is not accessible to even. We knew that there was a report on Lyme Barlow in there because of a water cooler. I shouldn't tell you this, should I? Because David could get into trouble. But we had no access to it, and neither did the mainstream fraud police up at the City of London Police. It is only accessible to that squad and to the ABI and the high level people. People like you deal with to buy your insurance have no access to that at all. But their systems are linked into it.
All right. Okay, I'm conscious of everyone's time and also viewers watching this. We don't want to make it too long, but I do just want to talk a little bit about just before we go about the sort of effect of this. Danny was saying we've got to be careful not to frighten people, but obviously some people are already, living with it. It's in your businesses, and I just wonder how, Jackie, how do your staff coping with it? It's just another thing after a couple of years of it being very difficult. How are they coping?
I think it goes back to what I said in the beginning. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Turn the booking away. It's easier to do that than to deal with the fallout from it.
Yeah.
And we talk to each other. We send each other a single message. I don't like the sound of this one. Yeah, what do you think? And the answer always comes back and said, don't do it. It's not worth the sale. Yeah, and even though we are obviously.
Yeah, and Danny, what about, you talked about new people and people working from home increasingly, so they can't just ask each other maybe in the office. What's the advice there?
Yeah, I think it's helping them to understand what these strange and suspicious behaviors are. So if it is a last minute booking, if it's a new customer, if they're wanting to pay by credit card at the last minute, those kind of things just do get across to new members of staff. Like this feels strange, so just query it. I think that's one of the messages. And the sad thing is, fraud is such an awful crime that impacts all of us, not only financially as a business, but also personally. because usually it's someone that's trying to manipulate you, and so emotionally it is draining, I think.
Yeah, and it's a time when we haven't had bookings for a long time, so you want to
Yeah.
take bookings, you know, and businesses need it for their bottom line, but everyone is excited because you want to be doing something
Yeah.
positive after all the years of cancellations and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's just, I just wondered
Yeah.
what toll it
Yeah.
was taking, really, and you know, to make sure that this
Yeah.
wasn't another thing that people had to deal with.
But one £10,000 fraud means that you've got to make up £100,000 of the business to pay for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There you go. That's
There you go.
startling. I mean, that is
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
a good.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that incredible? All right, Adrian, I'll let you have the last word, just for your team and everything. Are they feeling, you know, with the new system in place, do you think it's given them a bit more confidence, just as a nice positive finish?
100%. After the 4th attempt, I had one of my most senior ladies come in that next day. She had got to hear about it, and she said, I just don't want to take calls today. And you know, she said, I don't want to be responsible.
Yeah.
And you know, so it does have an emotionally draining impact on everyone.
Yeah.
I think Jackie's totally right. If it sounds too good to be true, it perhaps is. And for agents, if you can take a bank transfer, you're a lot more protected than taking someone's credit card.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. So such good advice. Great discussion. I love that you disagree with each other as well. They always make the best webcast. Apologies for my coughing fit halfway through. Sorry about that, everyone. But really appreciate your time. We will write up stories from this, and I hope it will help others in the industry. So very big thanks to Adrian, to Barry, to Jackie, and to Danny. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.